The alien stumbled through the clinic doors, its glowing skin flickering like fire in the dark, and every step seemed unsure, as if the ground itself might reject its touch. The air smelled of antiseptic and metal, but also carried a faint electric charge from the strange machinery lining the walls. Its many eyes darted rapidly from corner to corner, scanning the humans and alien staff alike. The humans froze momentarily at the sight of the creature, its translucent limbs bending in ways that looked unnatural, yet graceful in the dim light, and the low hum of the air conditioning mixed with the soft clicking and buzzing of alien devices created a sound that made the alien flinch. A small whine escaped its throat, like a combination of a hiss and a moan. It was a sound that carried fear and pain and confusion at once, yet no one moved to comfort it. The alien staff whispered among themselves, their voices clicking and humming in a language the human could not understand, yet the meaning was clear. Their gestures were dismissive, their eyes cold. They shook their heads and stepped aside, refusing to offer help. The alien froze in place, one limb brushing the edge of the door frame. It tilted, its head almost imperceptibly scanning the room for a sign of safety, for something to anchor its trembling body. It could feel its heartbeat, drumming in a rhythm that made its skin pulse brighter, and it took another hesitant step forward, each movement drawing more stares, some curious, some wary, some openly fearful. The humans who were capable of helping glanced at each other and then looked away. No one wanted to take responsibility for the strange being. It made a soft noise again, a kind of whimper, and it tilted its entire body, as if trying to make itself smaller, invisible somehow. It reached the small table by the entrance, its skin catching the cold light and scattering it in shards across the floor. The alien blinked its many eyes rapidly, and its chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. It tried to communicate a plea, a signal that it needed care, yet the language it knew was not understood in this place. Every sound was met with silence or rejection. It lifted a limb to point toward a wound just below its shoulder, a thin line of glowing fluid oozing from the surface, and its body quivered with discomfort. The alien staff whispered louder, clicking faster, moving their limbs in dismissive gestures and stepping back from the creature as if proximity was contagious and dangerous. The alien froze again, leaning against the edge of the table, muscles tense, waiting for the next move. Its gaze flicked toward the human in the corner, someone who had not yet turned away or recoiled, a human whose eyes held something like curiosity mixed with empathy. It watched the alien with an intensity that seemed almost tangible, and the alien tilted its head toward the human, hesitating, uncertain of whether this new presence was friend or foe. The room seemed to stretch and contract around them, every sound amplified, every movement noted, and the alien took a tiny trembling step forward, its body quivering with a mixture of fear, pain, and desperate hope. It stayed there, frozen, waiting for a response, for a single gesture, for a sign that maybe this human would not turn away, that maybe someone would finally reach out. The alien staff continued to shake their heads, clicking and humming, their voices rising and falling like a strange rhythm that the human could not interpret. Their limbs moved in sharp gestures, and the alien shrank back against the table, as if their rejection burned against its skin. It made small whines and hisses, trying to plead in a language that was meaningless. Here every sound it made was met with silence, or an impatient flick of a wrist. It looked around the room frantically, searching for anyone who might help, anyone who might see the pain it carried etched in the glowing wound across its shoulder. The human vet watched every motion, the way its limbs trembled, the way its many eyes darted desperately from one figure to another, and something inside her clenched a fist in frustration. She could feel the alien's fear like an electric pulse running through the room, yet the staff would not intervene. One of the alien healers stepped forward and shook its head, firmly clicking a long, sharp warning in the alien tongue, and the creature flinched so violently that it almost fell from the table, its small limbs gripping the edge as its glowing skin flickered with panic. The humans in the room shifted uneasily, none of them stepping closer to offer comfort. They muttered under their breath, some with curiosity, some with fear, but none with action, and the alien felt the isolation keenly, as if the walls themselves were pressing against it, pressing it back into a corner of despair. Its breathing grew shallow and rapid, a rhythm that made the faint hum of the machines feel louder and more oppressive. It tried again to make a sound, a whine, a hiss, a plea that might reach beyond the layers of misunderstanding, but the alien staff only recoiled and waved it away in dismissive gestures. It raised one translucent limb, trembling, and pointed toward its wound, a silent cry that went unanswered. The human vet could feel the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. She took a slow, deliberate stepped forward, yet hesitated, knowing that the alien staff might stop her. They were strict in their rules, rigid in their refusal, and still the alien watched her with wide, fearful eyes, searching for something that might give it hope, a flicker of recognition, a small sign that not everyone would turn away. It let out a tiny shuddering sound, the kind that made the human vet's stomach knot. She moved her hand slightly closer, as if to say, "I am here, I see you, I will not abandon you." Yet the alien backed up, instinctively blinking rapidly, its glowing skin dimming as fear surged through it. The staff clicked and whispered among themselves, their words sharp, like knives cutting through the quiet, and the alien pressed against the edge of the table, trembling. Every muscle taut, every eye fixed on the human, whose presence was both a beacon and a question mark, a possibility of salvation in a room filled with rejection and cold distance. It made another small noise, almost inaudible, and the human bent a little lower, letting her presence be quiet, gentle, non-threatening, a whispering promise. She did not yet speak the words, but her eyes carried them. Easy, safe, calm, and the alien froze halfway between retreat and hope, its body caught in the tension of fear and curiosity. A single moment stretched endlessly as the future balanced precariously between despair and the possibility of care. The alien backed into the corner of the clinic, its limbs pressed against the cold metal of the wall, every muscle trembling, as if the slightest movement might shatter it entirely. Its many eyes flickered rapidly, scanning the room for danger, for a sign that it was safe, yet every glance met rejection or fear. It could hear the clicks and hums of the alien staff, growing louder, sharper, more insistent, and each sound made it flinch. Its glowing skin pulsed erratically, bright flashes followed by dimming shadows, as though its very body was a reflection of the panic surging through its mind. It made a soft whimper, almost inaudible, a mixture of pleading and despair that echoed faintly off the sterile walls. It curled its limbs closer to its bafta, trying to make itself smaller, invisible in the corner. It tried to think of the language that would reach someone, the tones and clicks that would mean help, but the humans and the alien staff alike could not understand, and so its sound became raw instinct, pure emotion without words. It pressed itself tighter against the wall, trembling in waves of discomfort and uncertainty. The human vet stayed at the edge of the room, moving slowly, careful not to startle it. She crouched low to appear smaller, to show she meant no harm, her eyes locked on the alien, observing every twitch, every pulse, every subtle movement that spoke volumes in a language only empathy could understand. She could see the tiny rise and fall of its chest, the way its limbs twitched involuntarily, how it pressed its head against the wall, almost as if seeking comfort from the cold surface. The alien staff waved sharp gestures, clicking their disagreement, and the creature jerked back, each movement amplifying its panic. It tried to step sideways along the wall, its skin glowing dimly in protest, its many eyes darting rapidly, as though memorizing every potential escape route. Yet there was nowhere to go, and every second without care felt like an eternity. It made a small hissing noise, a warning or a plea. It could not distinguish itself. It was alone, and the weight of rejection pressed against it like gravity. The human shifted slightly closer still, moving slowly, her hands open, palms visible. She whispered softly words it could not understand, yet the tone carried warmth, gentle, steady calmness. She repeated the motion, inching forward, small, careful movements. The alien froze mid-step, uncertain whether this presence was a new danger or a promise of safety. Its body shivered, its glowing skin flashing like a pulse of fear. It looked to the staff again for reassurance, but they continued to shake their heads, clicking rapidly in refusal, leaving the alien trapped between fear and hope. The human took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving it, conveying patience, endurance, a silent promise. She would not hurt it. She mimicked its small movements, letting it see she moved in harmony and not aggression. The alien tilted its head, its limbs still tight against the wall, yet curiosity flickered briefly, a single eye narrowing, then widening as it studied her. She whispered again, "Easy, buddy," soft and steady, letting the words float through the tense air. It did not step forward, yet it did not retreat either, caught in the fragile balance between despair and trust. Every pulse of its glowing skin, every flicker of its multiple eyes, spoke the story of fear, pain, and the tiniest spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would finally see it and not turn away. The human vet knelt slowly, a careful, deliberate movement that did not startle the alien, her eyes scanning every detail, every twitch, every shiver of its Many limbs. She studied the subtle pulse beneath its translucent skin, the way the faint glow brightened and dimmed like a warning and a plea, every flicker telling a story of pain and fear. She leaned slightly closer, letting her presence be known without being threatening, letting the alien see that she observed without judgment, without force, without hurry. Her breath was slow and measured, matching a rhythm she hoped it could sense, a rhythm that said calm, safe. Here she noted the tiny shudder of its shoulder, the way its limbs curled tighter against the wall when any sound came from the staff, the faint hiss of frustration that slipped from its throat as it tried to plead, and she listened. Not just to the sound but to the pauses, the space between the noises, the subtle shifts that spoke more than language. She watched the alien's many eyes, darting rapidly, flicking from her face to her hands, back to the wall, back to the doorway. As if memorizing every potential threat and every potential sign of safety, she moved her hand slightly closer to the floor, open, palm facing upward, a silent invitation, not a command, letting the alien see that she meant no harm. The alien froze mid-motion, its body tense and glowing brighter with fear, yet there was no flinch, no retreat. This was different. This presence was different, and she whispered softly, "Easy, buddy," letting the words float like a gentle current across the air, hoping that even if it could not understand the language, it could understand the intention. And she observed how its limbs twitched almost imperceptibly, as if considering whether to step toward her or away. She noted the smallest signs of curiosity. A slight lean of its head, a blink of multiple eyes, a soft hiss that was quieter than before. She mirrored its movements, subtly shifting her body to show harmony, not aggression, letting it know that she could follow its rhythm without imposing her own. She saw how the alien flinched at a sudden click from the staff, and she froze to holding the position, letting the alien know it did not have to be afraid, that she would not move suddenly, that she would not add to the chaos. She kept her gaze soft yet focused, allowing it to study her as she studied it, a silent dialogue forming in the tension, in the pauses, in the breathing and the tiny movements of limbs. She felt the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. The responsibility of being the first to reach across a gap no one else dared cross. She whispered again, easier, softer this time, and the alien tilted its head just slightly, a gesture so small it could have been mistaken for nothing, yet she saw it, a spark of consideration, a question forming in its eyes. Is this safe? Is this something I can trust? She stayed low, letting her presence fill the space without crowding it, letting it decide every step without forcing a single motion, every flash of its glowing skin, every tremor of its limbs, a story she read and responded to silently, gently waiting for the moment when fear might begin to loosen its grip and curiosity might take a single cautious step forward. The human vet moved one careful, deliberate step closer, her hand still extended, palm open, low and slow, as if the air itself carried the weight of reassurance. The alien froze mid-motion, its glowing skin flickering rapidly like a strobe of fear and anticipation, its limbs pressed tighter against its body, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to retreat or strike. Its multiple eyes darted between her face and her hand and the doorway, as if calculating every possible outcome. It made a low whine that sounded almost like a question, a plea, or a warning. She did not rush. She let the moment stretch, letting her presence speak louder than words, letting the tension hang heavy in the sterile air. She whispered softly, easy, buddy, letting the words float gently like a small current, hoping it might reach the hidden corners of the alien's mind. Even if it could not understand the language, it might feel the intention in the tone. She shifted her weight slightly, mirroring the subtle tremors of its limbs, letting it know she moved in harmony, not opposition, not threat. The alien tilted its head, almost imperceptibly, a single motion that sent a shiver of hope through her chest. It inched forward, a tiny movement, one limb brushing the edge of the table, its skin pulsing faintly brighter with fear. She held still, letting it measure her presence. The staff continued their clicks and hisses from the corner of the room, but she did not flinch, nor did she look away. She let the alien see that her focus was on it, and only it, that she would not abandon it to the cold rejection of others. The alien made a small hiss and a soft hum of discomfort, its body rigid, yet curiosity twined with caution in every movement it raised, a limb slightly trembling, and extended it toward her hand, a motion So tentative, so fragile, that it could have been mistaken for hesitation, but she saw it clearly. It was an offering, a test, and she lowered her hand, ever so slightly, to meet it, not grabbing, not forcing, but simply aligning with its movement, letting it feel the space between them was safe and open. And still, she whispered again, "Easy, buddy," letting the syllables linger like a caress across the tense air. The alien inched a fraction closer, its translucent limb brushing lightly against the edge of her fingers. The contact was minimal, but it sent a shock of warmth through the air, a silent communication that trust might be possible, that touch might not bring pain. She held her hand, still waiting for the alien to decide its next move. Every flicker of its glowing skin, every quiver of its muscles, every flutter of its multiple eyes, a language in itself. She read and responded too silently. The alien hesitated a moment longer, its body trembling, then slowly it pressed more of its limb against her hand, testing pressure. Duration movement, a small experiment to see if the warmth and safety she offered was real. She kept her breath slow, letting it feel steady. She whispered, softer, easier, letting the rhythm of her words and her presence carry the promise that it could relax if it wanted to, if it chose to trust. And a tiny shiver passed through its body, a mixture of fear and tentative hope, the first fragile bridge of connection forming across the gap of species rejection and pain. And the human vet stayed, still, letting the moment unfold, letting the alien feel for itself that maybe someone could care. Someone could reach across the divide. And finally, the alien leaned a little more, pressing closer, letting the first genuine touch be a quiet acknowledgement that perhaps it was safe here, perhaps someone would not turn away. The alien froze mid-step, its translucent limb brushing against the human vet's open hand, the faint glow of its skin flickering like a fragile flame, threatened by every shadow of fear, yet curiosity twined with caution, pulling it forward, a single motion at a time. It inched along the edge of the table, tiny movements, precise and deliberate, testing the air, testing the presence that seemed to promise safety but had not yet proven itself fully. Its multiple eyes darted rapidly, scanning the room, the doorway, the cold, sterile walls, but always returning to her face, to her hand, to the steady warmth she offered. It pulsed faintly beneath her skin, like a promise of patience. It made small hissing noises, soft vibrations that carried both doubt and hope, almost like a whispered conversation in a language only instinct and empathy could understand. The human stayed low, her body loose, yet attentive, her breath slow, steady, matching the rhythm of the alien's shivering limbs, letting it feel that she could move with it, without force, without threat. She mirrored its tiny shifts and twitches, letting it measure her alignment. She whispered softly, "Easy, buddy," her tone even gentler, now letting the syllables flow like a current wrapping around its nervous body. The alien paused, lifting one limb almost fully into the air, a gesture so small it could have been mistaken for nothing, yet she saw it for what it was, a test, a silent question, asking if the warmth she offered could be trusted. It leaned a fraction closer, brushing its skin lightly against her palm. The contact was almost imperceptible, yet the ripple of relief that passed through her made the room feel warmer in the sterile cold of the clinic. It made a tiny sound, almost like a sigh, a soft vibration that was new, different. It was not fear, not entirely. It was the first acknowledgement that maybe safety was possible. The staff clicked and whispered from the corner of the room, louder, this time sharp warning tones, but the alien did not retreat. It froze momentarily, every limb coiled, tense, waiting for the next signal from either side. Then slowly, inch by inch, it pressed closer, testing the pressure, letting its glow pulse in response to the warmth she offered. Every movement a silent negotiation, every flicker of its skin a declaration that it was beginning to trust in small increments. She did not move suddenly, did not react to its irregular quivers. She held still, steady, letting it dictate the pace, letting it feel control in a place that had been filled only with rejection. Before she whispered again, easier, softer, letting the rhythm of her voice carry the promise that it could relax. She noticed the faint twitch of its mandibles, the subtle shift in its chest, the tiny pulse in its skin. These were signals of consideration, curiosity, of deciding whether to believe, the possibility of care. It shifted slightly more, leaning into her hand, its glow steadying, a little brighter, a little warmer. A single test of trust passed. She kept her hand motionless, letting it explore the space freely, letting it feel for itself that the human would not pull away, that her presence was constant, patient, and safe. The alien trembled but did not recoil. Every inch it moved toward her palm was a negotiation, a conversation, a delicate, fragile bond being formed across fear, pain, and difference, and the human watched every detail, knowing that this moment of tentative connection was the first step toward something that could never be forced, something that had to be earned slowly, softly, and without any expectation. The alien allowed the human vet to guide its trembling limb toward the edge of the table, a cautious motion, deliberate and careful, its skin flickering with every pulse of fear and anticipation. The wound beneath its shoulder glowed faintly like a small ember that had been left to smolder too long. It had been irritated and raw, from movement, from rejection, from being ignored, and now she could finally see it properly. Every detail, every line, every quiver of pain etched into its body. She reached slowly, letting her hands hover close without touching, letting the alien see the intent behind. Every motion, gentle, steady, patient, like a slow current washing over fear. She whispered, softly, easy buddy, letting the words drift like smoke around the tense air. The alien froze, every muscle taut, almost as if waiting for the moment to explode into panic, but it did not withdraw. It let the presence of her hand guide it toward calm, letting the space between them be sacred and safe. She dipped a small cloth into the antiseptic solution, the smell strong but not overpowering, and moved closer, careful not to startle it, letting her movements mirror its own shivers, letting it feel that she was not forcing anything. It lifted its limb minutely toward her, the glow of its skin pulsing bright, then dim, then bright again, like hesitation made visible in light. She pressed the cloth gently against the wound, careful not to touch too hard, just soft enough to clean away the residue of rejection. The alien hissed, a low vibration of discomfort, but did not pull away. It shivered against the table, its eyes flickering rapidly, and she adjusted instantly, following its motion, letting it dictate pressure, pace, direction. She whispered, again, easier, softer, letting the tone carry warmth and patience, letting it know that discomfort did not mean threat, that pain could exist alongside safety. She cleaned the wound slowly, every stroke deliberate, every pause measured, letting the alien see she was attentive to its reactions, each hiss, each pulse of light a signal. She read carefully and responded with gentle pressure or withdrawal, timing every movement like a dance with no music yet perfect in rhythm. The alien made small hums, almost musical, rising and falling, as if testing the sensations as it processed them. Its limbs relaxed fractionally with each pass of her hand, its glow steadied in small increments, and she continued, letting her hand move in harmony with its shifts, letting it feel the control was partially its own, letting it regain ownership of a body that had been ignored. The cloth dampened with healing salve. She applied it slowly, pressing lightly into the wounded area, again mirroring every shiver, every twitch, letting it know that touch could be safe, that care could be tender and deliberate. The alien did not retreat. It pressed slightly against her hand, trusting her guidance, trusting the gentle rhythm she allowed it to set. She whispered softly, easy buddy, letting the words wrap around it, a blanket of calm. The room around them faded to silence, except for the soft hums of the alien and her measured breathing. The first small bridge of trust had been crossed through careful attention, gentle touch and quiet whispers. The alien trembled, but its limbs did not recoil. Every subtle glow and flicker of skin told a story of fear meeting patience and pain meeting compassion, and the human vet remained still, letting it feel that care could exist without expectation, that trust could be earned without force. And for the first time since it had entered the clinic, the alien allowed itself to lean into the experience, to feel that perhaps safety was not an illusion, and that someone could truly see it and respond to. Alien shivered lightly as the human vet's hand stayed steady, gentle, and patient, its glowing skin pulsing slowly in a rhythm that no longer screamed panic but whispered tentative calm. It had pressed against her hand earlier. Now it leaned slightly more, letting her presence fill the space around it like a protective warmth. Its small limbs relaxed fractionally, tentatively testing the idea that contact could be safe, that touch could carry comfort and not harm. It made low, soft hums that mingled with her whispered words, easy buddy, as if the sound itself had power to anchor it in the present. It moved a little closer, curling one limb around her wrist, lightly pressing against her palm, letting itself feel the warmth and steadiness of her body. The human watched every shift, every tiny flicker of its skin, every subtle motion of its multiple eyes, noting How the glow steadied when she kept her movements slow and mirrored its tiny tremors. She let her hand rest against its body without pressing, guiding it only by presence and tone, letting it take ownership of each decision, every move. A small test of trust passed as it learned that fear did not have to be punished. She whispered softly again, "Easier, buddy," letting the words flow like a river, carrying reassurance across the tense space. The alien tilted its head slightly, letting one eye linger on her face, studying every expression, trying to decipher meaning behind the human features. The glow along its skin grew steadier and warmer, a visible sign that tension was easing, like a candle flickering out in a draft. It shifted, a little more pressing, its body closer to hers, a silent gesture of seeking comfort, and she adjusted slightly to accommodate the change, letting it find security without forcing the proximity. It shivered once more and made a low vibrating sound that was not a hiss or a whine but something new. Something that hinted at curiosity and acceptance, at the possibility that someone could care without demanding anything in return. She whispered, softer now, almost a hum herself, letting her tone match the quiet vibration of its body, letting it sense that she was part of the moment, not apart from it. Every flicker of its glow, every tiny twitch of a limb became a language between them, and she responded with subtle shifts of posture, small adjustments of hand, allowing the alien to feel the rhythm of safety building around it. Its limbs stretched slightly and it curled one small appendage around her forearm, resting there for the first time, fully seeking comfort rather than instinctively bracing for rejection. The hums grew longer, smoother, more consistent, a melody of trust forming in the quiet, sterile room. The alien blinked slowly, its eyes narrowing just enough to show relaxation. Its chest rose and fell in a steadier rhythm, its glow steady and warm, like soft light filling shadowed corners. She whispered again, "Easy, buddy," letting the words echo softly in the air, and the alien responded by pressing gently closer, letting its body melt slightly into her arm, allowing the human to feel the fragile bond forming. Every tremor that remained was now gentle, not frantic, a dance of patience and acceptance. She let the moment linger, not rushing, not demanding, letting it own each second of trust she had offered, letting it discover that safety could be more than a hope, that care could exist across differences, that comfort could be shared. And as it curled more fully against her arm, letting its glow warm and steady, the human vet knew that the alien had begun to heal, in ways beyond wounds, physical, its fear melting into trust and connection, and for the first time since it had arrived, it felt a fragile but real sense of peace. The alien lingered at the threshold of the clinic, its glowing skin steady, now warm and gentle, no longer flickering in panic. Every limb relaxed slightly, as if the tension it had carried for so long was melting away. It paused for a moment, looking back over its shoulder toward the human vet who had been its anchor. In the storm of fear and rejection, the room was quiet except for the soft hums of the machines and the faint vibrations from its own body. It tilted its head slightly, one eye lingering on her face, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had formed. A connection built slowly in patience and quiet whispers. "Easy, buddy," had become more than words. It was a promise, a bridge across worlds, a small current of trust that neither species had expected. She crouched low, watching every subtle movement, every blink, every flicker of light along its translucent limbs. She did not speak, she only held her hand, slightly raised in a gesture of farewell, letting it know it was free to leave and yet not alone. The alien took a cautious step forward, one limb gliding over the threshold, then another, testing the boundary between safety and the unknown. The glow along its body pulsed softly like a heartbeat of gratitude. It made a low vibration hum, almost musical in tone, and she whispered back softly, "Easy, buddy," letting the words wrap around it like a cloak of warmth. The alien paused at the edge of the room, scanning the space behind it, the clinic, the staff still clicking and whispering their disapproval in the corner. Yet none of it touched the fragile calm it carried now. The human took a careful step forward, letting her presence be seen, not imposing, not restraining, a quiet support in case it needed reassurance. But the alien had grown braver. It tilted its head and slowly extended a translucent limb toward her, hand brushing lightly against her palm, a gentle touch that was neither plea nor warning, but a thank you, a recognition that kindness had crossed the gulf of fear and rejection. It pressed lightly, then withdrew, letting the gesture linger in the shared space between them. The alien began to move toward the door more confidently, each step measured, Cautious yet steady, it paused once more, looking back over its shoulder, its eyes locking briefly with hers, the glow of its skin warmer, steadier, a visual echo of the trust it had allowed to grow. It made a low vibrating sound, one final hum, as if carrying a memory of every whispered word, every gentle touch, every patient motion that had taught it safety existed, even in a world of indifference. She nodded softly, letting the acknowledgement pass, letting the moment hold all the weight of everything they had shared. It stepped fully into the corridor, its body moving with a new rhythm, no longer trembling, no longer tense, the glow along its limbs a steady soft light that radiated calm. It paused briefly at the clinic exit, turning once more toward her. She raised a hand in a quiet wave, and the alien responded by pressing one limb gently against the floor, almost like a bow of gratitude. Then it moved into the unknown, leaving the warmth of the room, carrying the memory of care and connection with it. The human watched until it disappeared from sight, every muscle relaxing as if releasing a held breath. The bond remained, invisible yet palpable in the quiet of the clinic, a reminder that compassion could bridge worlds, and that trust could bloom even in the harshest spaces. And she whispered softly to herself, "Easy, buddy," and in that whisper lingered the memory of the alien, the proof that patience, gentleness, and quiet courage could create something lasting, a connection that neither distance nor difference could erase.